Hi, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm here with another Friday Reads. First up this week, since it's May 2nd as I record this, I want to tell you about a book that I finished in April, just finished it on April 30th, 1,000 Mornings by Mary Oliver. This is a book of her poetry. I explained back at the end of March, early April, that I wanted to try reading a book of poetry for National Poetry Month, but I haven't had a lot of luck with poetry in the past. Luckily, I've got some great bookish friends, the Book Cougars, Chris and Emily, who have a wonderful podcast, talk about Mary Oliver all the time. And they've read some of her poems on the podcast, so I knew she was very nature-centered, which appealed to me. As you can see, it was a hit. I've got tabs all through this. I really, really enjoyed this, and I want to read more from Mary Oliver. Her poems are filled with beautiful nature imagery, but they're also all about human life and our tendency to think too much, how we should take cues from nature. And her poems are filled with joy, which I really loved. So you can see there were lots of them I loved. I will read a very short one, and this is also what I liked. You notice she's got some much larger books because I don't have a good track record with poetry. I picked one of her shorter books. I think it's about 80 pages. And I liked so many of these poems. So here's a very short one. If I Were. There are lots of ways to dance and to spin. Sometimes it just starts my feet first and then my entire body. I am spinning. No one can see it, but it is happening. I am so glad to be alive. I am so glad to be loving and loved. Even if I were close to the finish, even if it were at my final breath, I would be here to take a stand, bereft of such astonishments, but for them. If I were a Sufi, for sure, I would be one of the spinning kind. I just loved this. It's, all about just joy and finding joy in life, in everyday moments, even at the end of your life. So this was a big hit. I will definitely read more of Mary Oliver. And I've found a poet I like. That's not entirely new. I've liked some of Maya Angelou's poems, select poems from Walt Whitman, Langston Hughes, but this is the first book of poetry, other than a Maya Angelou, that I have finished to completion and really, really loved. I am still reading My Beloved Life by Amitava Kumar. This was a Booktopia selection. You can hear me talk about it in my Booktopia vlog. And I've talked about it in previous Friday Reads. I'm almost finished. I've got less than 100 pages to go. It's a beautiful book, beautifully written about a man's life. A man who is born in 1935 in India. You can see in his silhouette there the mountains of his home. He grew up in a small village. He goes to college, becomes a college professor. So it is about his life, but because it's a part of his life, there are also sections with the perspective of his daughter and his grandchild. Haven't gotten to that part yet. That must be right at the end. But I'm in the part from his daughter's perspective now and really enjoying that. So that is interesting because you get his perspective and his daughter's perspective often on the very same events or happenings. It's a beautiful, beautiful novel, well written. It's a quiet, gentle novel. And I was fascinated by the setting in India. I don't know much about India. And also, because he was born in 1935, he lives through a lot of major historical events in India, which I knew very little about. So it's fascinating as historical fiction as well. And he was a very engaging speaker at Booktopia, My Beloved Life by Amitava Kumar. On audio, I picked something that I knew would be really gripping because I had a very long drive up to Vermont and back this weekend. So I'm still listening to this, Sand by Hugh Howey. Howey is the author of one of my favorite trilogies, the Silo trilogy that begins with Wool. If you haven't read it yet, you must. It is an absolute delight. And they've made, I'm trying to think, I think it's Apple TV has made a TV series out of it. Season 1 was excellent, but of course, the book is so much better. He's just an amazing writer. So he writes science fiction, but it's about the people. And that's what makes the Wool trilogy so great. So I do have this in hard copy because I gave this to my husband last year for Father's Day, I think, when I heard that he had a new series out. I think it's just a 2-parter. We have both parts, Sand and Across the Sand. So this is another sort of post-apocalyptic. It doesn't focus on the apocalypse. You just know that the central US where this takes place has been covered with sand. It is an arid desert. The wind blows constantly, creating new dunes, rearranging the terrain, but people are still there and trying to live. So again, the focus is on the people here. There are some mysteries at its heart. There are some things that happen. But at the center of this is a family of sand divers, a group of siblings. Their father was an expert sand diver, but he left when they were much younger. The 2 oldest siblings are now expert divers themselves and earn money for their family by... The reason sand diving is a thing is because our world is buried under all that sand. So diving down to find what they call artifacts that might be either useful or valuable to sell is how this family earns their money, and many others as well. So there are some mysteries here, some evil things going on that they are trying to get to the bottom of. So it's mystery, it's suspense. It is certainly a family drama. And in this just fascinating setting. So very much enjoying this on audio. I was lucky enough to get the audios from the publisher a couple of years ago. So, I've been saving them for a time when I really wanted something gripping, and it's been perfect. I can't wait to see how this ends. And besides having the hard copy, I do also have Across the Sand on audio. So I will probably listen to that as well. And I thought I would start something here on Friday Reads that I do on my blog. I do a Monday reading update on my blog. It's a thing in the blog world. It's Monday, what are you reading? And I always include what my husband and older son are reading. So I thought I'd do that here, but just very briefly. My husband is currently reading Caleb's Crossing by Geraldine Brooks. He reads a lot of mystery and thriller, so this is a departure for him. This is historical fiction. I read it back in 2012, I think for one of my book groups. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm a huge fan of Geraldine Brooks. Her novel, People of the Book, which I also read for a book group, just blew me away. And since then, I think I've read almost everything she's written. Caleb's Crossing takes place on Nantucket, or begins on Nantucket, in the 1600s, I believe. Yes, the 1600s. It's about a friendship between a Puritan girl and a Native American boy. Brooke specializes in historical fiction. She does her research, and as always, that is evident here as well. Caleb was a real-life Native American, the first one to attend and graduate from Harvard University. So that's kind of the backbone of this story. It's a wonderful novel, and he's enjoying it. He's gotten pretty far in it now. And my son always reads epic fantasy. That is his jam. He loves enormous fantasy novels. The bigger, the better. The more books in the series, the better. He just finished, I think this week, he has finished The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. That was a reread for him. This is another thing he does. This is book 1 of the Lycanius trilogy, and he reread book 1, as he always does, before reading book 2, which he's on to now, and that is An Echo of Things to Come. So I know he's enjoying those. So that's what we're reading this week. I would love to hear what you're reading. Please let me know in the comments down below.